Hey everybody, welcome to day 47 of my mental health journey. This one's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be an interview with my friend Lucky, aka Mental Health Casual. If you guys didn't see the last one, basically Lucky interviewed me. We did a great 45-minute session, and I just wanted to return the favor. I thought it was a great time, and I thought that just based on seeing his consistency and his growth, that it would be great to get Lucky on here to do an interview. So without further ado, I'd like to present to you all Mental Health Casual, aka Lucky. And I guess just my first question is, what made you, for those who don't know, what made you want to start your mental health journey and to document it on YouTube at that matter?
Yeah, well, first off, hello everybody. So when I first started actually documenting, it was actually on my last channel, which was under like my full name or something like that. I kind of did these depression journals, but I mean, with all due respect to my past self, they weren't very interesting. They were pretty just kind of me going like, man, I don't even know what I'm doing. It was just kind of me right after work, just throwing something out there.
Mm-hmm.
They were pretty cathartic, but definitely not really too interesting. I mean, I didn't even want to watch them. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really bad when you don't even want to watch your own videos. So I got to the point where I took a little bit off of that, and then I tried to start another channel where I was kind of doing more guitar covers, that kind of thing.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, it didn't really take too much to that because it takes a little too long to learn to learn some things sometimes to make put out videos in time. And then eventually, my friends wanted to start an anime channel, which is my other channel, Anime Casuals, that I do in between doing mental health
Oh,
casual.
nice. Well, I'll definitely
Yeah.
put that. I didn't even know that, so that's news to me. So
Hey, there we go.
yeah, there we go.
Breaking news.
I'll put that in the link below, as well as Lucky's mental health channel as well. So
Yeah,
good
for
stuff,
sure.
man.
Yeah. So we talk about anime and all that kind of stuff, and eventually I got to the point where I was like, you know what, like I want to try this mental health thing one more time, just because I really just want to get my um it's not so much about getting my story out there. It's mostly just relating to people and kind of showing them that there is hope. And it's not for people to look up to me in any kind of way. It's to look at me and say, hey, I'm doing better than that guy. Maybe I can just keep going. Hey, I'm not doing as good as that guy, but I'm almost there, and then I can go past them. I don't want to be like a limit for somebody. I want somebody to look at me, hear my story, and be like, okay, I'm not there, or I am there, but he got out. Anything like that.
Definitely.
Anything that relates to them for the most part. And so that's really why I put out these videos, is just to kind of show. And obviously, with our talk, with talking to different kind of people, I'm gonna be honest with you, that's more of a selfish thing, just because I really like listening to people's stories like yours, and Citadel and Mental Health Sharing and all these other people, just because
So
it's so interesting to listen to all these different people with different diagnoses. I talked to like last week. I talked to a gentleman with schizophrenia, and that was a totally different conversation than what we had.
yeah,
And it
I
was
can
so
imagine.
it was so interesting. So yeah, I think that's really why I started it, just to kind of connect to people and really show them that they're not alone in this mental health journey. A lot like what you do with your channel about anxiety. So
Awesome, man. And I guess this wasn't even a question that I had posed for you because I didn't realize that you had multiple channels. What was kind of as far as like this time I take it that you feel like you got it right. I mean, you got more followers than I do at this point, subscribers. Like you've been killing it so far. Like what kind of this time around, like you said that you had some ups and downs with making videos specifically on mental health, specifically regarding your depression, but like this time around, like you really have obviously turned a new leaf. What kind of drove you and gave you that confidence to be like, this time I'm not gonna be playing with it. Like I'm really going to make a splash and I'm going to provide content that people really start to eat up.
yeah, so it actually goes back to my other channel, Anime Casual. So while we actually took like a year-long break, that was mostly because of me, because I just didn't want to do them for. And at that point I was still drinking and doing all this kind of
Got
stuff. And
it. Yeah.
so And eventually it got to the point where I just didn't want to post anything, and I didn't want to talk about something that I liked. It was just anime. And so
Yeah, no, I feel
yeah,
that.
yeah. And so about a year passed, and then another channel came in with our name. They're called The Anime Casuals. We're called
Oh
Anime
man.
Casuals. So if anybody's ever looking that up, that's the difference between us. And they ended up with like 1,000 subscribers within the first like 5 months, and it threw me off. It threw all of us off. And
Yeah.
so I decided to come back, and I was like, you know what, like we have to stick to this. We have to keep going. Not to attack the other channel. Obviously, they're doing something completely different, but just to kind of do what we want to do. And so that's what I wanted to do with mental health for a long time. But just to be honest, it's really tough to make a channel all about mental health. Because obviously you want
Oh
to talk
yeah.
about other things. You want to, but mental health is just one of those things that just like regular health, it just interweaves with almost everything. And one of my videos that's coming up, I talked to my pastor, and he talks about how he's been affected by mental health, too. He had and kind of like an anxiety attack because he took on too much work as a pastor, because he was working like 80 hours a week. So it interweaves with a lot of different aspects and stuff. So I was just kind of thinking, this time I have to just keep going, even though, I mean, I get discouraged. I don't know how you feel about this, Clark, but I get discouraged almost every week. I look at my subscribers, I don't see them grow. I don't, obviously, I'm doing a lot better than I was, and I really do appreciate that. But every single time I'm looking at, I'm looking at the analytics. I'm addicted to that kind of stuff. And
Yeah, no, it's easy
yeah,
to, I mean, because it's just literally one click away. So you go on your
yeah,
channel, because you're, posting a video or something, and then you're just like, yeah, well, why don't I just like check out, if I got any new subscribers, maybe the notification bell will let me know, or I'll see that like, I had a good like analytics on this last video, and then you look at it, it has like 3 views, and you're like, well,
yeah,
goddamn.
yeah. No, it's exactly. And I'm like that on my other channel. My other channel is actually not doing as good as my mental health channel. I think it's just because of the networking and all that kind of stuff. But
Uh-huh.
I on my mental health channel, the one thing that's really helped me, I got a call at 3 o'clock in the morning. I didn't answer it because I wasn't, I was
Yeah.
knocked out. But my friend, who's kind of been dealing with a lot, divorce and all this kind
Sure.
of stuff. I'm trying to stay afloat. Where we're from in California, the rent is so high. And so now he has to deal with that by himself. And he called me at 3 o'clock in the morning. He gave me a message, and he said, "Hey, you talked to a guy. It was on my Omegle chat. A guy with schizophrenia, a lot of different stuff. But he was going to a recovery clinic for alcoholism, or for
Hmm. Yeah,
addiction.
actually, yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I checked that video out. I actually,
yeah."
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and so he really liked that, and he was telling me, he's like, dude, that was a game changer, man. I think you found what you're gonna do. And just little things like that. Even though it's not like I'm not getting comments on every video, and just because I'm not getting I'm not getting like floods of people just saying, oh yeah, keep going, keep going. Just one or two is enough to make me feel like, wow, I actually did what I set out to do, which was just to affect people in some way. And to really either open their mind, even if just because for me it was really tough, because when I went through my mental health episode, I didn't know anything about mental health. Like I didn't
Yeah,
know, I thought depression just happened to people who were weak, if I'm being completely honest with you. And then it happened to me, and here we are today. So
yeah. And I noticed, like, just in as far as like the verbiage that you were just using, you said what I set out to do. Like, it means that you're doing stuff with conviction. Like, you're moving in a certain direction purposefully. So, like, that's something that you have to remind yourself too. Like, even if your video doesn't get 100,000 views in 10 days or whatever, like, you made that video with like purpose and conviction, and you enjoyed doing it. So like that's aside from all the analytics and everything, like sometimes you just have to remind yourself of that, because like who's to say like one video you might drop has like 5 views and the next one will have 500,000. Like you can never. It's like making music. Like you could make a song that becomes extremely popular, or you could have a bunch of songs that like people don't hear. You never know what's going to be a hit. So you just keep doing what you enjoy doing, and then like as a result of your consistency and everything, it becomes over time you build up a catalog and everything. So that's another thing just to like keep in the back of your head, and like seeing you consistently making videos that have a lot of like good editing and stuff that I don't use in my videos. Like I got to give you a hats off just as far as that goes, because like that takes time. Like takes
Oh,
enough
thank you.
time, like by itself to make a video, let alone like add all that extra stuff, and like you're reaching out to like a very wide assortment of people. I've basically, besides for you, I've only been like reaching out to people I already knew.
Mm.
So like that's another great thing, and I'll tie that further into my questions because I do have some questions along that line. But I wanted to, and you just alluded to it earlier. I want to kind of ask you just how sobriety has affected your mental health, where you were when you were dealing with substance abuse problems to where you are now, and like just kind of understanding that for you, like it's not like oh, I stopped drinking and now it's all over with. Like it's a lifelong process. Like how does that affect your mental health? Just the fact that like you have your whole life in front of you, but on top of that, like how has sobriety affected you in a positive way compared to your mental health while you were still kind of in the depths of it?
Yeah, definitely. So, I don't know if I have covered this, but one of the reasons why I dropped out of college. So I went through a community college, finished that, went to a place called San Jose State University, and I was there for about a year. I know it was about a year, but uh, through that year, I was going through a whole lot in terms of like I didn't want to be there. I didn't think this was what I wanted to do. I felt like I was, for lack of a better term, kind of like being forced to, because a lot of people around me were going to college, so it
It's
seemed
just like
like it was
societal
exactly,
expectations. Yeah.
exactly, and it's nothing, it's nothing to say, about my family or anything. They just wanted the best for me, and that's,
Hmm.
that's always commendable. Just for me in particular. Now, granted, I did get a lot out of college. I love philosophy now. I was a philosophy major. And one of the things, while I was going to philosophy classes, I was getting, you know, super, super baked. I mean, for those of you who don't know what dabbing is, it's like concentrated marijuana, and it is. I did that 3 or 4 times, just going to class, red eyes, sitting next to the window that wasn't the window seat that wasn't even my seat. I just took somebody's seat that wasn't there, so I
Yeah.
wouldn't, so nobody could smell. But I would do that so often, and then I would go home. I would drink like a 6 pack, smoke, and then pass out. And while writing papers and all that stuff. Now,
Hmm.
granted, I did do good. I did get good grades, so that's what encouraged me to keep going. I was like, oh, I'm a high functioning
Yeah.
alcoholic. You hear
I'm a
that?
creative genius or
Yeah,
something like
exactly.
that,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then,
Yeah.
but the problem was when I wasn't drinking and I wasn't smoking, I didn't feel creative, and that was the problem. I had to keep in that space to
Yeah.
keep it going. And then, I got to the point where I just stopped going to class. I didn't tell anybody, and I would just, leave my place so my mom wouldn't know, and then I would just go, go smoke somewhere, go to the gym, and take up the class time, and then just go back home and act like I went to school. And then,
Yeah. And then you
obviously,
gotta you gotta live a lie at that point, and like that's gotta be
yeah,
stressful enough in itself.
yeah, exactly. And so, I dropped out of college, and then I went to work full time, for a good amount of time, and I kept with that. But I remember when I left my original company, retail company, and it was really. I just remember saying, because I'm religious, so I was praying. I was just like, oh
Hmm.
man, like if you can, God, if I can just get out of this job and find another job, I will quit smoking. And actually, the day that I quit, that's how I know when I stopped smoking, because I quit my other job in 2018, and so that's how long
Yeah.
that's how I know when I was sober. And then when I was drinking, the day I stopped drinking, I was or actually a few days before, I got in a fight with one of my Marine friends, like not a real fight, but we were just kind of like sizing each other up because we were drunk, and we ended up in
Sure.
like a MMA bout, like that I kept
Oh
blacking
damn.
out of. I didn't even realize I would black out, and I'd come back to, and this guy was on top of me, like elbowing me because he was playing a little rough with me. And afterwards I lost my glasses. I lost a couple of friends for that night because they were really some of the girls were really afraid because they
Yeah.
didn't realize that was going to happen, obviously. I lost my original pair of glasses. This is a newer pair of glasses that I got like last year. You know, whenever I stopped drinking and stuff, and
Hmm.
I said I couldn't keep going on with this. And so now that I am sober, it is like you said, you know, like that it is a lifelong process. It is. I do have to keep on reminding myself because every now and then I do get that thought like, oh my god, this video game would be so much cooler if I was, you know, stoned out of my mind, or you know, it would be so cool if I, obviously not now with COVID, but it
Hmm.
would be so cool if I would just go out there and drink with people, and I wouldn't get as anxious as I do. You know, like right before this, you know, besides, you know, doing dishes and stuff, I was meditating. I was trying to clear my head and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff
So
because I'm an
you've
antisocial.
had to find a new like, I guess, arsenal for things to like keep you in a good mental state. Like you can't just rely on getting high or drinking. Like, and in all honesty, I do both of those things. Like
Yeah,
still, like but like there's definitely some times where I have to remind myself like this is not, this isn't a crutch. Like this is something that you can do. Like if you can handle it, but like if you
mm,
can't, like you got to recognize that it's cutting into your life. Like I
yeah,
definitely have cut back on drinking and stuff because I mean I just wake up and I'd be hungover as shit. Like, and it
yeah,
was just like I couldn't do anything for the entire day. And like I'm somebody that has a lot that I want to accomplish in a given day. And if I feel like
yeah,
I'm only halfway doing it, even if I'm able to like do it, but I'm like suffering like mentally and physically through it, like it's just tough. Like you kind of
yeah.
have to make that decision. So I totally understand where you're coming from as far as
Mm,
like, you just hit that like rock bottom. I mean, you said you kind of lost some friends and like you just kind of woke up and you're like, what the hell happened? Like that's an anxiety inducing situation in and of itself, not knowing what happened. Like for all you know, you
exactly,
could have hopped in a car or something and like, but you wouldn't know. So
exactly.
it's just kind of, I definitely feel that, man. And I guess another thing that I saw in some of your videos that I thought was interesting that we didn't talk about during my interview, just because I hadn't seen this video up until this point. But so I know that you're at least partially Samoan.
Hmm.
Now, what is kind of the general attitude? Because it seems like you have cousins that are in Samoa, and or at least like family that is somewhat still tied to Samoa. Now, what is the view of like mental health in Samoa versus like the U.S., for example?
So Samoans, there's three things that you have to realize about Samoans that a lot of people don't really get. Obviously, we're not scattered around America, so I mean, it is really
Hmm.
hard to. Obviously, there's The Rock, and you know, like Troy Polamalu from
I was
the
gonna
Steelers,
say,
I
yeah,
think.
it was one of my
Yeah,
favorite players.
yeah, there you go. And
Yeah,
so obviously they paint a really good picture for us, but we have
sure.
to. What I focus on is more of the negatives. We've at least for the last 15 or 20 years we've been the top five. We've been in the top five obese per capita,
Hmm.
um, in terms of like you know in terms of race in the world. And you know we do have a big problem with especially American Samoa. So there's two parts of Samoa. There is Western Samoa, which is not an American territory, and then there's American Samoa, which is an American territory, just like Puerto Rico is.
Yeah,
And yeah, so one of the things that it's you know it depends on which Samoan you talk to.
sure.
But we are very religious people. Now I'm not the same religion as a lot of my cousins over there are, but they are pretty religious over there. So a lot of times mental health is like I'll give you an example. There was somebody in the news. I can't remember exactly who it was, but it was a someone. I want to say it was a football player, but I'm not completely sure.
Hmm.
That ended up committing suicide. And I
Was
remember a
it
bunch.
Junior Seau?
I think yeah, I think that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And I remember I was talking to another Samoan because where the place I worked, there were tons of them everywhere, and usually if you go to any shipping or receiving yard in California, you can find a couple of them
Yeah,
there.
I was
But
gonna say that's kind of where you guys congregate, right? On the
yeah,
West
yeah,
Coast. Yeah.
pretty much. And yeah, so I met with one of them, and he's like, I just don't get how he did that. Like, and you know, I was looking at him coming from my mental health background. I was just like, you don't understand why somebody would want to, you know, commit suicide like that. And he, you
Yeah.
know, he's just like, I just don't get it. You know, our values are so because you know we're religious. There is a big problem with I always get this wrong and it freaks people out. I always
Yeah.
say capital punishment by mistake. I mean corporal punishment. So
Corporal.
we
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we do. there's a big, there's a little bit of a problem, at least what I see with my Samoan family, and I did notice a little bit in Samoa was they do hit their kids quite a
Yeah,
bit,
I was
and
gonna say, mom's gonna beat your ass if you're
yeah,
like
pretty
out of
much.
pocket and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I've gotten hit with a lot of different things, and that does work for some people. I'm not gonna dismiss that, obviously, if somebody is
Hmm.
watching this, but it didn't work quite well for me, especially with a dad that was in and out of my life. The fact that he didn't stay meant that I never gave him respect, but I also feared him because he would just come in and out of my life. I would go with him, and I knew I was gonna get hit at some point. If I
Hmm.
did something, even the smallest things. I mean, I remember we were doing that stupid thing with those chairs that spin around. Me and my cousins were doing that, and they noticed that we were, just being like a little too loud, and we all got the. My uncle was really good with the wet towel, man.
Oh
That thing
man,
would leave
that
scars,
shit
man.
hurts.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah, I thought it was a joke at first, but man, he was like, "Get over here," and I was just
Nah.
like, "Whoa, man!" He left scars, man. But yeah, so I would say, that's kind of the general consensus is just that it's not that it's not I can't really speak for every one of them, but in terms of the ones that I've met and actually talked to about mental health. Now one of my cousins is actually she works over at like a Kaiser, and she
Uh-huh.
when I told her about my 5150, she's like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that is, and she was very very open to me talking about it, and she was totally fine. So it's more of the Americanized ones that I think
Yeah.
are more
And,
fine
and
with it.
and just for the people that don't know who aren't from like California and whatnot, Kaiser, you're referring to like Kaiser
Oh
Permanente,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
the
Kaiser
yeah.
Permanente, yeah, it's
Okay, yeah.
one of the major
I
ones.
happen to know what that is, but just for the
Okay.
folks that aren't from like the West Coast or whatever, that's just a really big healthcare system out west.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, now that I'm in Texas right now, I'm just like, man, where are the Kaisers at? I
Yeah, I
never
was gonna say
realized
yeah,
that.
they're not there.
Yeah, but it is very interesting. I think it is important to kind of understand where you come from. Also, like my dad, he couldn't handle his alcohol very well.
Sure.
So my mom always kind of decided like, oh yeah, just be careful when you drink. The problem is I could handle my alcohol very well. I remember one day I drank an 18 pack of Coronas by myself, and I still wasn't drunk. That's how bad it was. So
Yeah.
it wasn't just the obviously the addiction and everything, the weight
Hmm.
that I gained. I lost 30 pounds just from being sober, and
Yeah.
then
And I mean,
uh,
Samoans are known for being like larger
exactly.
individuals too. So like you would assume that they could probably drink more, but like along with like a culture of like wanting to drink more, like I just
Yeah,
feel like you could
that
definitely.
is, yeah, that is definitely something. When I used to party with my cousins and all that stuff, I mean, everybody was drinking to the point where, I mean, we every single Samoan get together that I've been to, we there was at least one fight. I was in one of those fights too.
Yeah.
I wasn't exempt from it. I also said some stupid things when I was drunk, and so
Hmm.
yeah, I just like to have more control in my life overall. But yeah, there are some problems with Samoan culture in terms of mental health. I think sometimes they're a little bit more ignorant to it. But just depending on who you talk to. I think that's just like in any other culture. Obviously
Yeah. Oh yeah. I
we're
mean,
trying we're
dude,
trying to do this right now too, is to
I'm
kind of eliminate
Irish.
stigma.
I'm
Yeah. Oh
Irish
yeah.
American, like
Yeah.
the stereotype around them just being permanently drunk and stuff. Like, there's cultural stuff like Russian people, for example,
Hmm.
same thing. Like they're constantly, there's Russian people that like Dostoevsky that have like,
Hmm.
made major literary contributions and whatnot. But
Yeah.
like people just have an idea of like Russia as like everybody's permanently drunk on vodka.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely ideas about culture in general, but like you gotta like people have to understand too that there's just because you're Samoan doesn't mean that you're gonna want to get drunk and fight at parties or
Yeah.
just because you're Irish, same thing. Like
Yeah. I was gonna
so,
say same
yeah,
stereotype.
exactly. But like you
Yeah.
start to realize that like almost every culture like low key has like a drinking stereotype, and that's
Yeah.
just because drinking and drugs and everything are so pervasive. It doesn't affect just one group of people. Like you know you could be Italian and drinking red wine on the Amalfi Coast or something, or you could be Samoan drinking whatever in Samoa, or
Yeah.
Irish drinking whiskey. Like liquor and alcohol just play like a major role in every culture. So I think it's
Yeah.
unfair to say like only one culture is known for drinking, but sometimes that definitely gets thrown into the mix. At least that I've
Exactly.
seen.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. I mean, we have these giant drinks over in Samoa called Vailimas that they get off of the military base over there. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, like I said, man, like just like you were talking about alcohol being very pervasive in every culture. I mean, same thing with mental illness. That's
For
always the
sure.
thing that we always have to remember, no matter where you come from. I'm also Cherokee, so I mean that's where,
Oh yeah. I mean,
yeah, you can
you
definitely
read
see,
a Bible like
yeah.
amount of just like the stuff that the Cherokee and just Native Americans in general have been through.
Yeah, yeah, and but also it's about moving forward, and the Cherokee tribe has done a really great job of doing that.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely, I think just knowing where you come from is also very helpful, just in terms of knowing your family's history.
Definitely.
Yeah, I know that people in my family are like my dad is very had a very addictive personality. So do I,
Hmm.
and that's kind of what I wanted to tell. Kind of make a precursor to is like you were saying that you drink, all that kind of stuff. Like for me, there was never an off switch. I only had an
Yeah.
on switch, and it would just keep going. I never had like, oh, I'll just drink one beer, I'll just drink two beers. No, it had to be a six pack, and I had to be close to blacking out or blacking out, and then I had to
Yeah,
keep going. So that
for
that was
sure.
kind of why I had to stop. So.
Hmm. And like for me, sometimes it's just like it's not like it gets to that, but I just wake up
Mhm.
in the morning and I feel terrible. Like
Yeah.
I feel so bad, and it's like I have a whole day ahead of me or whatever, but I just
Oh
like
man.
I'll make it happen somehow, but like it's just not enjoyable at all. And then you start like trying to balance out the risk and reward and everything. So I
Hmm.
totally understand. Like there's some times where I feel like I should just like quit for a little while. So like I remember I did like sober January, stuff like that. And I felt really great. Like,
Yeah.
like it's all the power to the people that are, abstaining from alcohol and just, there's just so many stressors in life and everything. So it really takes like, you have to hone a skill set, like, working on stuff that you love, for example, to really kind of make you not think about some of those like stressing factors. At least for me, like I have to be doing stuff I love doing. Like making these videos is
Hmm.
fun for me. So like that's why I do them. And that's like it helps me like stay focused on doing something positive that's not like, just go, I mean, obviously with Corona and everything, like people are more inside and everything, but like, it's good to have stuff like what you're doing with multiple channels, for example, to keep you busy and to keep you excited about life. Like that's so important to your mental health. People like think that you just have to have a job or something. Like your job should be obviously to make sure the money's coming in, but like don't discredit like your other interests, like whether they're anime or sports or what have you. So super important.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I guess that segues into another question I have. So you've been between work recently, correct?
Hmm.
So I was recently in between work for like 7 months, I want to say,
Hmm.
and there was definitely a lot of ups and downs, because like I tried to make sure that I kind of made a video or did something that I loved every day, but like even if you do stuff that you love, like sometimes, at least for me, I felt like kind of worthless, like because I wasn't like moving forward with like a career, which is obviously like a stupid thing to think or whatever. But like I definitely had a bunch of like ups and downs. There were some highs and some lows, a lot of valleys, a lot of peaks during that extended period of time that I wasn't working. And one of the things that I did was create the channel, and I felt like that really made me feel a lot better and kind of stabilized my emotions. Maybe because I just started talking about my emotions more. But I'm curious about one, how this channel has kind of helped stabilize your emotions and just ups and downs if it has, and just in general if you've kind of felt like a more consistent feeling throughout like just being unemployed and whatnot, or if you've kind of like the way that I felt had a bunch of ups and downs.
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of ups and downs. I've been
Yeah.
unemployed for I want to say since June 5th. And even
Yeah.
before that, it was a little bit. I did get furloughed for about a month or month and a half, and then went back to work for like 2 months. And then
Hmm.
they were releasing me again for furlough, but then I was like, you know what? I've been wanting to move out of my mom's house for a while. I've been living in my mom's house for last 27 years, so I really
Sure.
wanted to try and branch out and try and take a risk. And yeah, so I ended up doing that. And one of the biggest influences on I really like listening to motivational speeches, but
Definitely.
it's always good to hear a motivational speech from somebody that's actually successful. And one person that I listened to was Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I remember he was talking about. I remember him doing a speech, and he was saying, he's like, I don't get why people have a plan B. Like, what? Why? Why do you have the safety net? Because
Hmm.
I went for what I wanted, and I went for it, and I got it. He was doing bodybuilding, but he was also doing construction about 18 hours a day, and then still had to go bodybuild after
Hmm.
that construction. And I was just like, wow. I mean, this guy literally he came over to our country I mean, I think Bill Burr has a joke about it, but he came over to our country, became the governor of a state he can't even pronounce, and married a Kennedy at one point. I was like, man, this guy went for it and kept going. Now, granted, not everybody can do that, but I think really striving for your goals is really something important. And so when I got laid off, I saw an opportunity in that because I do have this
Sure.
extra time, and I had saved up quite a bit of money, so it's not like I'm living, obviously some of it came from unemployment and stimulus and all that kind of stuff, but I did save up a pretty good amount of money so that I'm actually okay for maybe 6 months or so. And I decided, I really have been wanting to. One of my biggest fears in life, and I don't think I was actually going to do a video on this at some point, so this is breaking news for you.
Oh,
One of
wonderful.
one of one of my biggest fears in life is fading into absurdity. Like, so I went through a year in my life in 2017 where I lost. Okay, actually, it was 2017 to 2018, about August. I lost my father in December of 2017, actually 4 days after my birthday. I lost one of my uncles a little bit later in 2018, and then I lost my grandfather, who, like I said before, my father was very in and out of my life. My
Hmm.
grandfather was kind of filled that void for a lot of people. He had like about 9 kids that were kind of like Brady Bunch together because he married my grandma, who's technically my step grandmother, but she's the only grandmother I've ever known. And so he was really the like the male role model for all of
Yeah, I
us,
was gonna say it
everybody.
sounds
Yeah.
like he was like the consistent male role model
Yeah,
too.
yeah, and he was, when my dad wanted me to do football, because a lot of Samoans do football, my grandpa said, because he also did football, but when I quit football, my dad was a little disappointed. My
Uh
grandpa
huh.
just said, like, "Oh yeah, but you're still doing trombone, right?" And I was in the marching band at that time, and he was like, "Yeah, just keep doing that then." He was very
Yeah,
supportive of
just
me no
keep
matter
doing
what I
what you
did.
like doing. Like,
Exactly.
period.
And he was very, very supportive of me no matter what happened. So when I went to each one of those funerals, like my dad's funeral was huge. Obviously, we have a big Samoan family. I wasn't there for my uncle's funeral because I was over here visiting my brother, and then I
Hmm.
went to my grandfather's funeral. I just remember thinking to myself, I think this is one of my biggest fears is having a funeral. And granted, I'll be gone because it'll be my funeral, but
Yeah,
having nobody there, like having all these empty seats because I didn't do anything in the world, because I didn't make an impact. And I hate that
yeah,
idea of fading into obscurity, because I made the choice to do that. Like, like doing nothing is still a choice.
yeah,
And for me not to do this whole thing, and not to reach out to people like you, or Citadel and other people, I reached out to like maybe 15 people, and I only got like 3 or 4 people
yeah.
to
See, that's
get
another
back to
thing
me.
too, and I referenced it earlier in the in the interview, but like
Hmm.
as somebody who deals with different like because you deal with a variety of like mental illnesses,
Yeah.
what did it take a lot for you to like reach out to people that you didn't know? Did that create a sense of anxiety, or was it just like I'm doing something that I really enjoy, so like if they're messing with that, like hell yeah, and if they're not, like I'm just gonna keep it pushing.
Yeah, it was major anxiety. I mean, before I even talked to you, I that's one of the things that I liked about my anxiety kind of playing a role in this, is that I watch so much of your content beforehand. I always tell people this: as long as there is enough content for me to watch, I'll watch about at least an hour and a half of content, and just be glued to it, like it's
I'm the
homework.
same way, dude.
Yeah,
I'm the same way.
yeah,
I love
yeah.
watching people's content.
Yeah, and so and also I'm trying to think of what in the world is going on, where are they coming from, how is this different, and I try and relate it to my life. And
Hmm.
so for me kind of reaching out, I mean, obviously, I'm still trying to reach out with more people and stuff, and it's definitely gotten harder, just because I think I got really lucky with you guys in particular, just because like one, two, three, the first three or four people that I talked, or I messaged, actually hit me back up.
Yeah.
And obviously, this isn't for everybody. Not everybody can have an open discussion like this. It is very hard when you're asking people with mental illness. Obviously, I have social anxiety, so I totally understand not wanting to, talk about this without, kind of having a close edit. Because even though I do edit my videos, I don't really edit the talks as much. Obviously, I
Oh
have
yeah,
to.
you didn't edit. You didn't edit anything that we
Yeah,
really talked about.
yeah.
Like,
So the only thing I have to do is really, because obviously there's a speaker mode, which I'm sure is probably what you're using.
hmm.
And then so basically I just take, I take the two sides slides in like the regular view, and then I have to edit it so that it goes to each person talking. So that does
Sure.
take me a lot of time, but I don't like to cut the conversation because I want people to know that this wasn't cut and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, as for me, kind of reaching out to people, it is really nerve wracking. But I remember talking to somebody else about this, was that it's rewarding in the end, and I have to remind myself about that each time I go into these things, is
Yeah,
that this is going to reward me somehow, even if this interview goes completely complete like crap or anything like that. Like, I'm
sure.
still going to get something out of it, because I'm going to learn, like, oh my god, this is this is not how I want to talk in my videos, or oh my god, this is not how I want to approach an interview, or anything like that. So obviously there's a lot of anxieties there, but once I get past it, it's so rewarding,
Yeah.
to know that I've risen above it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like the gym. It's like, I think we were talking about this when you interviewed me, like kind of the gym analogy.
Yeah,
Sometimes you don't
exactly.
want to get up and go to the gym, but like once you go and do it, like once you're in the motion of doing it, and then once you leave, like you wonder why you ever had any self doubt about going or desire not to, because you know like what the end result's going to be, the
Exactly.
endorphins, the natural like high and everything. It's the feeling of accomplishment.
Yeah.
So like, and it's like meeting a new person too. So like that's always cool. I mean, I very much enjoy meeting new people and getting new perspectives and stuff like that. Like I love to talk about myself, but I also prefer to talk about other people, you know. I'm interested in what people have going on. I know what I have going on and whatnot. So it always just interests me to see how other people view the world and the perspectives they take on things. And I mean, you can learn a lot just by shutting up and listening. So and I feel like that's one thing that for all the mistakes I've made in my life, I've always been interested in other people too. So I feel like I've been able to shut up and listen. And I feel like
Yeah.
that, and I mean, I get the same sense from you. Like you were great at interviewing me because you have good listening skills and you have good analytical skills. So I'll
Oh,
just say
thank you.
keep pushing in that direction, man, because it's something that you're naturally good at. And I mean, you already have multiple like content things too. It's not like you're just doing mental health videos. You're doing anime stuff too, and I'm sure that branches off along like a bunch of different like versions of anime. And like, are you doing like videos and video games and stuff like that too?
Yeah, so it's mostly just anime, but the other two people that I have the anime channel with, we have very different anime tastes, so it works out
Sure,
really well.
that's
And
awesome.
I actually realized that it kind of gave me a break off of the mental health stuff. Like, every time I would get burnt out of the mental health stuff, I would go to
Yeah,
my anime channel and I'd be like, oh, thank God,
and
like I
your
don't have to
tank is
think.
fresh.
Yeah, I don't have to think too much about all this mental health stuff. Now, granted, anime does talk about that stuff, so it's great too. But yeah, obviously, I get a little bit of a break from the straight mental health talk, so it works out.
Awesome, man. Well, I just have actually I have three more questions that I wrote
Yeah.
down. I guess so. Just piggybacking off that last one, um, like in the future, because it sounds like you're very just like confident, like moving forward, and I know you have your ups and downs and whatnot. But like, how do you view like the continuation of your channel? Like, do you see yourself just continuing to make videos because like you love doing it? And like, I know this is obviously a more superficial reason, but I mean, I've seen your views going up. Like, I saw like some of your like videos had like 6 views, and then they had like 200 and like 100 and stuff like that. So like, you're clearly in the upward trajectory. Do you envision yourself continuing to just apply that pressure and making videos that are true to you and interviewing people, because it seems like you have a talent for it and it seems like you know how to talk about it. So just curious
Yeah.
for the folks.
Yeah, I think obviously I want to keep doing this. And actually, funny enough, earlier today I had an interview with NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Health,
Oh
or
wow.
mental illness. Sorry, excuse me. But I was talking to them. I volunteered to be like a speaker for them. Obviously, they're doing it over Zoom. But I'd first heard about this organization with my therapist. He was like, it sounds like you want to tell your story. I mean, NAMI is a reputable, excuse me, organization. So you could always do that. And so I did talk to an official today. She kind of liked what I had to say. So I'm going to be doing that as well at some point. I've just got to start training and doing that to basically present to middle school to high school kids. Basically, just I would either be the person that relays like the facts, the statistics, or I'd be the one that tells my story. I'm not completely sure which one I would choose, but I am taking a step in that direction in terms of obviously part of it is to make my speech abilities a little bit better, just
Yeah,
because
that's a
when
I mean that's a nerve-wracking thing in and of itself
yeah,
too.
yeah, because whenever I edit my videos, man, I have to listen to all the nervous things I say. I end up saying the same, after somebody talks, I'll usually say, yeah, absolutely. And I had to
Yeah,
hear that
the
like
stuff,
7 times in my last yeah.
this stuff that no one actually notices but you.
Exactly,
Like, you know.
exactly. So I'm trying to just get better as a person, like overall, I think. And so that's kind of what I want my channel to be. My channel was never really about giving advice, like I was kind of talking about earlier. It's just to kind of show people my journey along with it, and if they happen to
Yeah,
take something out of it, that's great. If they happen to not, but as in terms of like the viewership and all that kind of stuff, it has been very good. Now, granted, I have been plugging a lot of my stuff on social media. I've gotten more into social media,
definitely.
just for business purposes, because I don't
Hmm.
want to, I don't want to end up getting into that black hole of social media bull crap that everybody
Oh
gets
yeah,
stuck into. But obviously, it doesn't hurt to get all these views, but at the same time, it definitely it's definitely it for me, it always has to be at the back burner, because I have a huge ego, man. And if I
yeah,
let that thing control me, I'll just every single time I get like any less views than what I thought I should
yeah.
have, I'll get
You're
offended.
gonna be on yourself like for no reason. So
Exactly. So yeah, that's kind of where I see the trajectory of my channel, just kind of keeping going, and trying to make more things that are more relatable, and make things that are fresh, because obviously talking about mental health and talking about the same old story over and over again, like I've told my story so many times on so many different channels, that
yeah,
it's gotten a little boring. So now that's why I'm reaching out to other people, and
yeah.
kind of doing these interviews.
It's fun to talk to other people and just see what they got going on, especially when they're doing something like similar to you. But
Exactly.
obviously your story is entirely different than mine, so you put a different flair on it, and
Mhm.
that's what keeps it fresh. Like mental health is very subjective, so
Yeah.
one you two people might have the same diagnosis, but it might present entirely different symptoms and just behaviors in general. So it's
Absolutely.
always interesting to just hear what people how well, first of all, how they deal with mental health, like if they're trying to do anything at all. Um, and just like seeing how people start these journeys is super interesting to me, because I started mine in a different way than you started yours, but at the end of the day, we're the same objective is to kind of get an understanding of our own mental health and move forward in a positive way. So
Good point. Yeah.
yeah. And I guess so okay, so I have two more questions actually,
Mhm.
and you alluded to this as well earlier. But so you are originally from California, but you moved to Texas in the not was it like a year ago that you moved to Texas?
No, it was actually pretty fresh here. I moved here in July, actually.
In
So
July.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
fresh.
yeah, fresh,
Okay,
fresh.
hell
Yeah.
yeah. So how's that been as far as clearly very different, like as far as like culturally speaking? Has it been exciting for you because it's like a new adventure? Has it been a major source of anxiety and perhaps depression? Or like, can you kind of give us an idea of how it's affected you from a mental health standpoint, from at least the beginning to this point?
Yeah, yeah. So it's really interesting. So when I first moved out here, everything was okay. I kind of treated it like it was anything else. Didn't I mean, for the record, the place that I live in, Texas, is there's just so many Californians here anyway. So
Okay,
I'm seeing
got
a
it.
bunch of
Yeah.
Californian. I've been seeing a bunch of Californian like football teams and stuff and all that kind of stuff. And it's not that different from where I was at. Obviously, the weather
Okay.
is completely different. But yeah, there was one night where I was just completely like doubting myself. I remember I couldn't go to sleep, and I was just thinking, did I even do the right thing? Like I could have stayed at home. I could have, my mom probably would have been able to support me while I was doing this, and I wouldn't have to think about, when this money runs out, am I going to be able to, sustain myself and all that kind of stuff. And then the next day, after getting like 3 or 4 hours of sleep, I just
Hmm.
remember trying to shoot a video and not feeling it. I was just like, oh my God, this is the end. Like, this is the end of this channel. This is like, I legit had like an existential crisis before.
Yeah, it's hard, man.
Yeah, yeah. And
It's
so,
hard.
yeah, eventually, for me, um, I just remember thinking about, like, I talk about this a lot, is the fact that when I hit rock bottom, I knew, which would be me going to the mental health hospital that I was at, and, just not knowing what was real or not, because I was seeing
Hmm.
hallucinations. I was diagnosed with mania, and just not knowing what was real or not. But I just remember thinking, There's this really good quote from there was this Marvel show on Netflix called Luke Cage, and
Hmm. Oh
one
yeah,
of the yeah
yeah,
yeah one of the guys, I think his name's Pops. He would always say, "Always forward, never backwards." And I
yeah.
remember I loved that line just because it was so awesome to me. And I did martial arts for a little bit of my life, and I still study it in terms of like analyzing tape and all that kind of
That
stuff.
was my final question because I
Oh
saw
yeah,
that you know did your video on Robert Whitaker, and then you
yeah,
also had the it's something Choi, I forget his first name, but on the Joe Rogan
yeah, yeah.
podcast.
Mm-hmm,
So like clearly you have a love for MMA, and you had
mm-hmm,
mentioned that you know you got into a fight with like your boy, like
yeah.
in the MMA thing and stuff. So like clearly that's a big part of your life. Now,
Mm-hmm,
is that something that came about? I mean, because you said you were playing football, and then your dad was like a little disappointed that you quit football, but like
mm-hmm,
two very traditionally masculine things. You have MMA and like warrior culture essentially.
mm-hmm.
And shout out to all the women that you know do MMA too, because they're
Oh
kicking
man,
ass out there
yeah, they
too.
are.
Um, but uh, but yeah, like what? How's the MMA journey been for you as far as like maintaining your mental health? When did you first get into it? And
Mm.
you know, is that something that you did while your father was still around, or and if he was around when you first started it, how did he kind of view that relative to like you know you playing football, for example? Did it kind of like fulfill like a void that he kind of thought existed that you didn't really care about? Because I mean, you said you were playing trombone too, so there's
Mm-hmm.
obviously the stereotype like, oh, he's just you know in the band or something, but
Mm.
there's no law or decree saying that you can't you know play
Yeah.
trombone and also know how to kick somebody's ass in the octagon.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm just curious about kind of how he viewed that because it's like that's a kind of complex identity. You know, you have a traditionally like nerdy, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
role combined with something that's like traditionally seen as hyper masculine. So I thought that that was kind of interesting. You know, that you've blended those two identities.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good question. I never really thought about it too much, just because he was so out of my life at that point.
Okay.
But the thing was, I never felt comfortable enough to tell him about any of this stuff.
Okay.
But the one thing that MMA really did help me out with was just, granted, I don't do it anymore. I do still, I weight lift. I'm more into bodybuilding now, but I just love because like I'm one of those people that when I'm watching it and UFC, Bellator, anything like that, I'm the
Hmm.
one who's like the color commentator. Like I'm the one talking about like what's happening. Oh, he's gonna
Yeah.
throw this. Oh, he's gonna do that. Oh, he's gonna do this. And because it's just so awesome to understand something, like to see something and understand something. And one of the things that I really liked about MMA that really taught me a lot was that even when you're underneath, when you're on the bottom, when you're on your back, the fight's not over. Like the fight
Yeah.
is not over. You still can get up. You can still tap people out from your back, and that's what a really big lesson that it taught me. And it was so interesting because all of a sudden my philosophy started changing just from this physical sport and just from sparring.
It's so
You know,
demanding.
yeah,
You
and
need to
yeah,
have mental toughness to do it. It's not just physical.
yeah, and it was just so interesting because I wasn't the only one breaking. Like I would break people, but they would also break me, and it was so humbling because you realize that you're never gonna be the best at everything, but you can always strive for it. And it was
Yeah.
just so cool to really have that kind of confidence that I could maybe beat up somebody that didn't know anything, but also have the humbling experience to really be like, I wonder what he knows. I wonder what he knows. Then you don't want to really start fights with people
Yeah,
because you
dude.
don't
I
know you
just
have no idea what they know, right?
literally, and this is like sounds very fortuitous, just like based on this conversation. But I
Uh,
think like 10 minutes before we hopped on this interview, I saw this meme like on Instagram, and it had Habib and Gaethje,
yeah.
and like it was they're just both like looking super nerdy. They had glasses on. It's like who would
Yep.
have ever thought that you know these two guys were you know these heavyweights like in MMA and whatnot. Like you just never know. So
Yeah.
you gotta like put your ego to the side sometimes and recognize like, hey, this dude might be like 5'2", but for all I know, he's the next Bruce Lee. Like you just
Oh
never know.
man. Yeah, dude, you gotta be careful with those small guys. I remember there was a guy in my gym, and I did kind of take him for granted, but I remember, I was just pumping him with what we call a jab, which is your front front fist and you're just kind of punching it like that. I remember he got so tired of it. You know, he was kind of playing around with me because obviously he's one of the coaches,
Yeah.
and so eventually he just got so tired of me, you know, doing this because I was trying to coast because I was tired. I was like, I'm not trying to do anything. That he eventually used my hands. If you've ever seen like boxers use this rope thing where they go under and they
Yeah.
do this
Uh-huh.
U pattern. He basically did that with my arm within a second and got all the way to like my armpit and started destroying me. And I remember
Yeah.
after that I was like, I can't take these people lightly. So ever since then, you know, I've just never anybody that's ever, you know, that I've ever sparred with, I took very seriously to the point where I always thought I was going to get knocked out in sparring.
Yeah, man. It's the
So
size of the fight and the dog, as they say.
yeah,
So
so yeah, it was definitely a very humbling experience, but it also gave me a lot of confidence going forward in terms of just dealing with life because life is a fight, man. Life will put you on your
it's
back,
a
but you
marathon for sure.
yeah, and you can't give up at that point. You have to keep going. So it's definitely taught me a lot of life lessons doing that.
Absolutely. I mean, it just goes to show you, like, even today, like, there was moments where I was just kind of like just getting up out of bed today. I was like, really? Like, do I just like have to do this shit? But I mean, it just goes to show you, like, you gotta be able to just level yourself out. Sometimes there's going to be highs and lows, but the key is to find that like kind of evening out sort of like thing, whether it be MMA or making videos and stuff, and like you just really got to find what you love doing and just go all in with it. So
Absolutely.
yeah, but I mean, that's kind of what brought us here tonight. I mean, we were both just doing some stuff and I mean, you happen to be reaching out to other folks, and I was just impressed with the fact that you were just willing to reach out to me. Period. So like,
Yeah.
it wasn't even a second thought to do an interview, and just based on how well the last one went, I would have been dead wrong not to do a subsequent interview with my man Lucky over here. So
Yeah, I definitely appreciate
yeah,
it, man. Yeah, that was a great interview. So, you know, if you guys haven't watched it yet, it is a great interview on either one of our channels. It was definitely a lot of learning to, you know, to be had throughout that thing. And so, yeah, it's definitely fun to interview and also be interviewed. So, thank you for calling me
absolutely,
back,
bro.
man.
Appreciate that, man. And
Yeah.
I guess just a final question before we wrap things up.
No?
This has been a journey for both of us. What are some of the main things that you've taken from this up until this point, and comparing to like the start of your journey, what do you think that you've learned that you can apply to tomorrow to make tomorrow a better day?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things I've learned is just the daily grind is because you know, at one point I did have a lot of suicidal thoughts. Now I don't know if I would have gone through with them, but then again, my intervention happened during that time. So,
Hmm.
but I remember two people died in particular, three people actually died in particular, and I remember it was Anthony Bourdain, who was a host of
Dude,
this traveling
R.I.P. to
show.
Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah, yeah, and then which I think was the video that you're talking about with David Choi, where he was kind of talking about Anthony Bourdain, and then there was Chester Bennington from
Yeah,
Lincoln
from Lincoln
Park.
Park. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and then
remember. I remember I was in Spain when he died. I was just like,
yeah,
oh my god.
yeah, and I'm trying Chris Cornell from Audio Slave and
Yeah,
Soundgarden, and he I remember when they died, I remember I was thinking like I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that these people would want to die. But then I
yeah,
also realized like at one point I wanted to die and I was at the
yeah.
top of my life. I had a beautiful girlfriend. I was really fit. I was, you know, I was doing all these things and I was about to go to college. The sky was pretty there was no limit on what I could have done, but I put a
Hmm.
limit on myself. And I
Yeah,
remember thinking to myself like as long as I survive one more this is something I've learned now is as long as I survive one more day I can do one more day of work to make myself better. And it's all just
yeah,
putting money in the bank for later. You know, obviously, this channel, you know, both of our channels are pretty small right now, and it'll definitely happen. But you know, some of the people, like if you look at Joe Rogan's very first podcast, man, it is one of the funniest things you've ever seen. It's like him and Brian Redband just like messing around with the computer. There's like bubbles coming up, these stupid special effects and stuff.
yeah.
And now look at where he is. He's moved from California since then, but you know, he's got this epic sound engineer now, you know, young Jamie, and doing all this kind of stuff. And I think we have to kind of remember, you know, I was just watching another motivational speech by Denzel Washington, and you know, just kind of
Shouts out
say,
to Denzel Washington.
yeah, dude, killing it, man. And I just remember, you know, he was saying, I just remember him saying, you know, you can't give up on what you know, that's what kind of separates the 98% to the 2% that are successful are the people that just keep going. Because at some
Yeah,
point you're going to want to give up. There are going to be things that get in the way of what you do. and there's going to be obstacles that maybe you need to get around. And obviously, with this whole thing, maybe at some point I need to get a part-time job, maybe I need to get a full-time job.
Hmm.
But the thing is that really going to stop me from wanting to make, is that going to really stop me from making videos? I
Yeah, I
hope
mean, I
not.
asked myself
Yeah,
the same question, man. Like,
exactly.
as I've started working, but at the end of the day, I mean, I love doing this stuff. Maybe I
Yeah,
don't do it every day, but like, you you can bet that I'm gonna keep doing it because I
yeah,
recognize it's something that it adds a level of happiness to my life, like
yeah, and you're good at
collaborating
it
with
too. So
people and just doing stuff that I enjoy doing. So,
yeah, and you're doing
yeah,
great with it too. So it's, and obviously
appreciate that, man.
I've seen from your first video, it definitely seems like you've gotten a lot better at speaking since that video. Obviously, what is this? What did we say? This is
Dude, I was
47.
terrified. I was terrified to make that
Yeah,
video. Like, that
yeah,
was just
yeah,
pure adrenaline making that video.
yeah, and
Now
obviously,
I can sit down and make a video, but
yeah,
it
and
takes practice and it takes wanting to do it consistently.
yeah, and now you're here talking with another mental health YouTuber, and we're able to, even though we're
Oh
both
yeah,
anxious, here we are making a video. So for all of your guys' viewing pleasure, for all your viewing pleasures, we have decided to put our anxiety aside and decided to talk to each other. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to interview me. It's always nice to kind of be recognized as either, just as somebody who is eligible to be interviewed. It's always a nice feeling to have people want it to hear your stories. So,
yeah. Well,
I
I
do
mean, I
appreciate
can say the
that kind
same
of
thing
stuff.
for you interviewing me as well, man. So
Yeah,
very much appreciate that. And
yeah.
so I just want to conclude this interview by saying, first and foremost, this was a legendary interview. I'm very happy that I was able to interview Lucky after he had a fire interview with me and a very well researched one at that. But I want to put all of Lucky's stuff in the description below. I want to try and learn a few editorial stuff, so maybe I can make it a little more jazzy. But just for all of those who don't know, this is Mental Health Casual. Somebody I consider a friend at this point reached out to me and just wanted to do some collaboration, and here we are, second video deep. And I think sky's the limit, man. I'm going to continue to follow your stuff. I'd love to collab in the future.
Oh yeah, no, I was just
Spoken with
about to
some
say.
other folks.
Yeah, I
Spoken
was
with
just
some
about
other
to say
folks that
we're.
I haven't collabed with that I would like to collab with, and I'm definitely going to put people that I know onto Lucky's channel and whatnot. But I
Absolutely.
love what you're doing, man, and it made sense to
Same.
do round two, but you can bet that this won't be the final round. We're definitely got to keep this going, and it's always a pleasure, man. I really can't stress that enough.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to watching the video and seeing seeing everybody's response to it.
Yeah. Well, good stuff, guys. I will be putting this out in the next couple of days. I want to see if I can get some editing onto it and just make it look nice. But appreciate you once again, Lucky. Mental
Yeah.
Health Casual for those who don't know, and the description will be in the link below.
Yep.